The cost of the maintenance of the President of the United States is about $1.2 billion per year. That's about $2,300 per minute. This expense includes the operation of the White House, its offices, chefs, servants, movie theater, the president's salary and allowances, the cost of the transportation of the president from one place to another in the most secure and comfortable way possible, which involves everything from the armored vehicles, high-end helicopters, to jumbo jets. This all sounds incredible, and the presidency seems to be at the peak of luxury. Yet, it still lacks a feature that previous presidents wholeheartedly enjoyed: the presidential yacht. Between 1880 and 1977, the presidency of the United States came with its own yacht, which was primarily meant for leisure and taking some time off from the claustrophobic tensions of the White House. Presidents used them for entertaining guests, building relationships, and cracking sensitive deals away from media scrutiny. These vessels hosted legendary world leaders, witnessed some of the most iconic moments of American history, and created several scandals along the way before they were abruptly decommissioned, sold off to private owners, and then left abandoned to die a slow death. This video is about America's most famous yachts and their rather sad demise from the American presidency. Before flying was the preferred mode of transportation, America's commander-in-chief sailed aboard Navy vessels to reach different parts of the world. Large ships carried them abroad, while smaller vessels were used for short-distance travels, as well as for recreation, fishing trips, and hosting foreign dignitaries over to hold casual, informal meetings. Abraham Lincoln used a steamboat called the River Queen to discuss sensitive topics during the Civil War. Grover Cleveland sailed aboard the USS Dispatch for the dedication of the Statue of Liberty. The USS Dolphin and the USS Sylph also worked as yachts for succeeding presidents. As the popularity of flying increased, sea travel declined, but presidential yachts continued to be popular among presidents as quick getaways from the White House. The golden era for presidential yachts came in the early 1900s when the USS Mayflower was added to the fleet. Unlike previous presidential boats, which were modest in design and meant for doing business, the USS Mayflower was a luxurious steamboat decked with sumptuous interiors, bathtubs made from Italian marble, and a 30-person dining table. It measured 275 feet and boasted a crew of 150 people. The Mayflower was the largest of all, and it spoke of decadence, signaling the nation's rising prosperity and power in the world. President Theodore Roosevelt famously used the yacht for family cruises along Long Island. He introduced the Japanese and Russian delegation aboard the Mayflower to mediate peace talks in the Russo-Japanese War, a deed that earned him a Nobel Peace Prize. President Calvin Coolidge had his Sunday morning prayers on the boat, while Woodrow Wilson used it to woo his second wife during romantic jaunts. The USS Mayflower was the scene of many diplomatic events, and many members of the world's royal families signed its guestbook. But as America's economy took a downturn, the ship's opulence became a glaring point for critics of presidential opulence. It was costing the American taxpayers $300,000 in annual upkeep, roughly $4.5 million in today's money. So when Herbert Hoover became the president, he decided to decommission the USS Mayflower as an economic measure. Shortly after the Mayflower was auctioned off, President Hoover began taking fishing trips on a wooden-hulled vessel called the Sequoia. The 104-foot yacht was much smaller and more humble than its predecessor, yet it was elegant enough to suit the American president. It could sleep 6 and accommodate up to 40 lucky figures for cocktails on the spacious aft deck, or 22 guests for a formal dinner in its salon. President Hoover and his wife spent both Christmas and New Year's Eve on the Sequoia as part of a 10-day fishing trip. He was so fond of the Sequoia that he featured it on the White House Christmas card in 1932, a move that many construed as callous as he sought to steer the country out of the depths of the Great Depression. President Franklin Roosevelt, who frequently enjoyed fishing aboard the USS Sequoia, got an elevator installed on the boat for easier access for his polio-stricken body. He hosted the British Prime Minister on a cruise to Mount Vernon, during which the two discussed the Great Depression, the rise of Hitler, and strategies for averting the threat of a potential war with Germany. Quickly, the USS Sequoia became the president's favorite, earning itself the nickname of the Floating White House for the purpose and convenience it provided. Since the yacht served as a getaway for presidents to relax with friends and conduct business outside of the public spotlight, official entries don't exist for many of the events that took place aboard the Sequoia, and several legends have developed. During World War II, Winston Churchill and President Roosevelt are rumored to have discussed military strategy on board, as well as planning D-Day together on the large table in the Sequoia's main salon. It's also believed that Roosevelt got the USS Sequoia suspended from official duty so that Churchill could drink on board. However, officially the wooden-hulled Sequoia seemed too dangerous for the president when war loomed on the horizon, so he switched to the USS Potomac, a steel-hulled presidential yacht, where he entertained guests like King George VI and Queen Elizabeth on the first visit of British royalty to an American president. The USS Potomac also served as a deception tool amidst World War II security tensions. A body double of the president would be stationed at the yacht signaling the president's presence, while the real president would be holding strategic meetings with Churchill on another warship.
At Portsmouth, Virginia, the USS Williamsburg, President Truman's new flagship, has been refurbished as a seagoing White House and a means of recreation for our busy chief executive. Everything is shipshape for the president to take over, and every comfort provided in his quarters where Mr. Truman can work, relax, or entertain distinguished visitors and friends.
When Harry Truman became president, the USS Williamsburg replaced the USS Potomac as the official presidential yacht, but the president still would prefer the Sequoia to hold floating poker games. He made his own alterations to the boat, adding a piano to the boat's drinking area for entertainment. He was on the yacht when he decided to drop the atomic bomb on Japan, and the same year, he cruised with the US's closest allies, the prime ministers of Britain and Canada, and discussed the promise of nuclear power and the need to control atomic weapons. A year later, the Sequoia was the venue of classified political and military discussions, which would eventually lead to the formation of Western Europe in 1948 and NATO a year later. President John F. Kennedy added a king-size bed to the Sequoia and held key strategy meetings aboard the yacht to discuss the Cuban Missile Crisis, but like much of Kennedy's presidential tenure, his stays on the boat are mired in controversies. Marilyn Monroe is rumored to have joined him for a cruise or two, which is difficult to verify since no official government photographers were allowed to accompany Kennedy during his trips on the boat, and immediately after he was assassinated, all personal logs relating to his involvement with the yacht were destroyed by order. On May 29, 1963, 25 of Kennedy's closest friends and families hosted a cruise party aboard the Sequoia and celebrated the president's 46th birthday, which would later prove to be his last. This iconic photograph, taken that night by a Navy officer, features Mary Pinchot Meyer, the ex-wife of a CIA officer who was reported to be romantically involved with the president. Her murder the following year has been the subject of several conspiracy theories. The widowed Mrs. Kennedy made several trips to the Sequoia after Kennedy's death. A big fan of the Sequoia, President Johnson removed the elevator installed by Roosevelt and had it replaced by a wet bar. He used the Sequoia to lobby Congress members and to discuss and dissect the Vietnam War, the Civil Rights Movement, and the ongoing issue of Cyprus. Richard Nixon made use of the boat more than any other president. He was aboard the Sequoia when he decided to resign and informed his family, and he reportedly asked the crew to switch off the lights and leave him alone. He then took to the boat's piano keys and played God Bless America for over 30 minutes. Earlier, he hosted Soviet diplomats and General Secretary Leonid Brezhnev on a working dinner cruise where they discussed the Nuclear Arms Treaty and the prevention of nuclear war. President Ford even hosted a 4-hour-long cabinet meeting aboard the vessel. The age of presidential yachts came to a sudden end when Jimmy Carter took office and acted upon his campaign's promise to dispense with the extravagance of the presidency. He was unhappy with the $800,000 annual upkeep and ordered that the Sequoia be offloaded in a public sale. In total, the Sequoia served 8 US presidents over more than 3 decades, witnessing historic feats of diplomacy, alleged extramarital affairs, and Russian intrigue. Arguably the most historically significant vessel in American history was auctioned off in 1977 for just $286,000. President Carter would later regret this decision and called it a mistake. The vessel then fell into the hands of a series of private owners who offered this former presidential yacht for private charters to offset the cost of maintenance. At one point, the Sequoia was hauling passengers along the Potomac River for $10,000 a day, which caused irreversible damages to this elderly wooden-hulled vessel of historical importance. In 1980, a non-profit organization acquired the Sequoia for $1.1 million and brought it back to DC for use by the president and his cabinet. The Sequoia underwent a $2 million restoration, but fearing bad political optics, the US government refused to bear the cost. They wanted the yacht, but without spending the money. While the yacht rotted in storage, the Clinton White House tried to persuade Kuwait to purchase the Sequoia and to gift it back to the American people as a gesture of gratitude for the US helping Kuwait against Saddam Hussein's 1990 Iraq invasion. That did not happen. Starting from 2013, the Sequoia was subject of a series of legal battles among its owners. While the court cases lingered, the vessel was left abandoned in Virginia. All this time, the vessel withered and decayed with each passing season without maintenance, sometimes lying in water and other times in storage. The damage wasn't just on the outside, but the inside had faded into squalor. The place where JFK had celebrated his last birthday was now infested with numerous raccoons. Wild animals had defecated on carpets and littered the living rooms where presidents had held international diplomatic summits. In 2017, a Delaware court ruled in the favor of the Sequoia's new owners, FE Partners, allowing them to take ownership of the yacht for $0 additional. The new owners wish to restore the Sequoia to its former glory, which is no small feat. It'll take at least a few years to restore it, including 9 to 12 months of careful planning before the restoration can even begin. Restoration has been delayed, reportedly due to the ongoing pandemic. While the Sequoia's post-service life was mostly idle, the USS Mayflower's busy life after retirement has earned it the title of the most interesting life of all the other vessels in US history. An intense fire broke out while she was being overhauled by the Navy for auctioning, and she sank to the bottom and had to be raised. The wealthy financier who bought her went broke while trying to bring her to her former glory and fled the country. Successive owners have had a variety of ideas for the ship, including using it as a floating dance salon, restoring it as a historic relic, and even selling it to the Japanese government. The Mayflower eventually ended up with the Navy in the end. She had previously served in the Spanish-American War and World War I, and then she was guarding against the German U-boats in World War II. Decommissioned again after the war, the Mayflower worked in the Arctic as a sealer and as a trading vessel in the Mediterranean. At one point, it was secretly transporting Jewish refugees who were facing mass exodus to Israel. Israel purchased the Mayflower in 1950. Renamed the INS Maoz, it served as a training ship until it was broken up in 1955. What remains of this former presidential yacht today is one of its guns kept at the Naval Museum at Haifa, Israel. The USS Williamsburg met a similar end and even a bit sadder. After serving as the presidential yacht for over 8 years, it was transferred to the National Science Foundation in 1962 and modified into an oceanographic research vessel. Until 1968, the ship made 10 scientific cruises to the Indian Ocean and 8 cruises to the Pacific Ocean, and hosted multinational teams of scientists on board to study marine life biology in those waters. The ship suffered extensive damages in an accident during repairs and had to be sold. The new owners had a grand plan of using the ship as a combination floating hotel, restaurant, museum, but it ended up firmly grounded in the muddy water of Pennsville Township, New Jersey for more than a decade. It rusted and decayed there, and for some time worked as a restaurant until it was transferred to Italy in 1993 for conversion into a luxury cruise ship. That plan was never realized. By 2015, time and negligence had turned this former presidential yacht into a dilapidated ghost ship, good for nothing except scrapping. 2 White House staffers ran a Kickstarter campaign to raise $40 million to prevent the scrapping of the ship and bring it back to the US to restore it to its former Williamsburg glory. They could only raise $21,700. The Williamsburg was scrapped in March 2016. The only presidential yacht other than the Sequoia that still exists today is the USS Potomac. Mexican drug cartels were using the ship in large-scale drug-running operations when FDR's eldest son, James Roosevelt, and some other well-wishers of the yacht brought it back to the US. After undergoing a $2.5 million restoration, the yacht was permanently berthed at Jack London Square in Oakland. It's open to tours and cruises, and the Potomac Association, chaired by FDR's grandson, looks after the preservation of this valuable piece of history.